Is it weird that I'm doing a diesel delete video in front of a bunch of gas Tahoes? What's up, guys? So if you watched my last video, you saw we had an oil change scheduled today after running low on oil in the D-Max. So we're just pulling into the dealer now. Check out this camo Duramax. Pulling on up. Let's get the oil changed, get a couple things checked out, and we'll be on our way. Needs to be serviced. Seems to be burning a lot of oil, but that could just be me driving. Well, guys, just dropped the Duramax off, so we got a little time to kill. Wander around the dealer's lot here, see what kind of trouble we can get into. So I told you guys we'd do a truth about deleting video, and seeing as we're at the dealer, I think it's a good time to do it. Being as the dealer's either going to be your worst nightmare or your best friend. I know it's a big concern of people, you know, what happens after you delete it, what happens to your warranty, will the dealer even want to work on your vehicle? So let's get into that. But first, we got the special Ops Edition Silverado. I don't know that I'm a big fan of this thing. I mean, Walker Texas Ranger would appreciate the old cage back here. So before we really get too far into this video, and don't mind me if I'm squinting too much, it is really bright and really hot out. Just bear in mind, I'm no expert. If you're gonna delete, kind of do that, you're gonna be doing that at your own risk. So kind of take everything I say with a grain of salt, do your own research, never believe everything you hear on the internet. Everything I'm saying may or may not be 100% spot on. It's just kind of the stuff I've known and what I've been told and what I've been able to come across on the internet. So I know one of the biggest concerns, and kind of first and foremost for everybody, is what happens to your warranty. So obviously, any kind of tuner you're putting on the vehicle is going to void your warranty. It's not like the old days where you can put the tuner on and then something goes wrong, you know you're going to the dealer, so you take the tuner off real quick and bring it in. The computers nowadays, they leave a tracer on there that it has been tuned, so the dealer's always going to know. So you can try and pull a fast one on them, but it's not going to work. So in theory, yes, you void your warranty. Now that being said, if you look at what's covered under your warranty, and here's the reason I deleted when I deleted and look this up for yourself just to make sure, the high pressure fuel system, which is, as far as I'm concerned, aside from blowing the motor, one of the most costly things to replace, it's not covered all the way in the 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. If I remember reading correctly, it's somewhere between 30 and 50,000 miles is all that particular system's covered for. So at that point, if you try and wait out your warranty and something goes wrong with your high pressure fuel system at, say, 60,000 miles, you're not going to be covered anyway. So there's really no point in waiting. And with that being said, I mean, if you go with a responsible tuner, and you know, these tunes are tried and true, they're not, you know, you don't want to be the first guy to try out a tuner. You want to wait till a lot of people have them, they've been around for a while, which is the one that I has been, but they're tried and true. So unless you already had something catastrophically wrong with your vehicle, you're not really going to experience any issues because of the tuner. Well, shit, we found a bunch of Duramax Colorados. Maybe that'll suffice. Do our video over here. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, deleting is the best thing you will ever do to your vehicle. So one common misconception, it's something I get asked a lot, is what deletes do you run? And deletes aren't really a thing. There is no deletes. There's not. Deleting something is more of a process versus it being a thing. So you can't just go out and say, hey, I want to buy this company's deletes. That's not a thing. What it takes to delete a vehicle is you need, number one, a tuner. You're going to be removing things from your vehicle. So you need to be able to trick your computer into thinking that stuff's still there. So the tuner is going to be able to do that for you. Number two, you're going to want to remove that restrictive exhaust system, which, as you will see, is one giant missile. So if nothing, you're getting rid of at least 100-something pounds of weight from under your truck. So a new exhaust system, I recommend a 5-inch AFE or Flow Pro. Great exhaust, straight pipe all the way back, sounds sexy. Number three, you're going to need to either remove the EGR and put caps over where the EGR valve was. You can run EGR blocker plates, and they slide in between the EGR and the actual the valve body or the manifold itself. Fourth thing is not mandatory, but it depends on what tunes you want to run. So if you want to run the higher horsepower tunes, you're going to need to get enough fuel to the motor to be able to keep up with it. Otherwise, if you try and run a super high horsepower tune and you really get on it, you're going to drain your fuel rails. There's not going to be any fuel going to the motor, and it's going to do some weird shit. So you're going to need to get a lift pump. I recommend the Fast 150 lift pump. I'll put the link down in the description to be able to make sure your motor has enough fuel pumping to it that it's always there when you need it. Now I know back in the day when deleting first became a thing, lights would come on in your dash, you'd get warning lights, you'd get check engine lights, none of which meant anything, but the computer just couldn't handle it. So you'd have to deal with all kinds of lights on, which would drive me nuts. Even though knowing nothing's wrong, it would still drive me crazy seeing any kind of light on. Well, nowadays all that's eliminated. They've got it down so well, the computer has no idea anything's going on. It thinks everything's well. If you check your diesel exhaust fluid level, it'll say check's okay, everything's good. So don't worry about any kind of weird lights coming on. That's not an issue anymore. And speaking of diesel exhaust fluid, if you guys have seen the video of me getting under the hood to add some oil, you'll realize what a pain in the dick adding diesel exhaust fluid was all the time. Now that being said, it's every 5,000 miles, something around there. But if you're still doing it, and I'm sure some of you watching this video obviously haven't deleted yet, so let me give you a tip. If your town has a truck stop, I'd go there. They usually have diesel exhaust fluid on tap coming out of the pump. It's a nozzle right next to the fuel nozzle, and it makes it so much easier to get up under the hood, just pump it in and you're done. You're not dealing with boxes of the stuff, gallons of the stuff, because that sucks. You're gonna spill a lot that way. So just a little quick tip for you guys there. Ugh, I can still taste new car in my mouth. I don't know what it is, but I cannot stand new car smell. I don't get why people like it. I mean, all it is the off-gassing of all the plastics and crap that's in a vehicle. Never like that smell. Anytime I buy a new vehicle, I leave all the windows down, you know, all the time, everywhere I park, just to try and get that smell out as quick as I can. So another question is, what happens if the truck tries to regen after I've deleted? Well, the beautiful thing about tuning it is you get rid of the truck ever wanting to regen. Now, if you've ever been through a regeneration cycle on your truck, you realize the fuel economy drops dramatically, like insanely, which I don't know about you, but that does not sound eco-friendly to me. So the fuel efficiency drops dramatically. You get a weird smell of stuff burning off. Sorry about this airplane flying over. We'll wait for it to pass. So for those of you that don't know what a regen cycle is, basically your diesel particulate filter is going to be collecting all the soot and all the shit that they don't want out, and then eventually enough of it builds up that it needs to get burnt off. So what happens is your exhaust heats up extremely hot to try and burn through all this soot that's in there, and it basically recycles it through your motor, which I'm gonna see if I can find a link to this video I watched previously from a guy in the diesel motor field. He's put on a presentation on just how bad regenerating or regen cycles are for your motor. It's horrible to pump all that soot back through your motor. Can you imagine what that's doing to your valves? Can you imagine what kind of residue is getting left inside there? Like, I'm telling you, deleting is the way to go. The motor life longevity is going to go way up. So anyway, while you're doing this regen cycle, not only does your fuel economy drop, not only does it smell weird, but if you shut the vehicle off in the middle of this regen cycle, when you start back up, it doesn't just start back up from where you left off. It needs to start the regen cycle again. So if you know you're going through a regen, which, by the way, it doesn't tell you. If you know you're going through a regen, you're gonna wanna drive it long enough until that cycle's over. Now, you would think they'd make a regen cycle voluntary. You could press a button, hey, your filter's full, you know you're gonna need to drive 10 miles today to burn it all off. Would you like to do it now, knowing you're gonna go 10 miles? Or you're only gonna go to the store, you're gonna drive 2 miles, and we're gonna try to do it anyway. Well, the EPA doesn't trust you. They don't think you have enough sense or brains or control to be able to enact the regen cycle on your own, so they have to force it on you, which, as you can see, normally backfires. Unless you're doing a lot of highway driving and it happens to hit right when you get on the highway, you're kind of screwed. So let's talk about diesel exhaust fluid for a minute, aka urea, aka P. Of all the things to find, to use for diesel exhaust fluid. It's kind of a strange one, but being that everything emissions wise in this world is ass backwards, it only makes sense, I guess. So diesel exhaust fluid, I believe it's every 5,000 or so miles you're going to need to refill. And if I remember correctly, the Duramax tank is about 5 gallons. I could be wrong. The problem when you run low on diesel exhaust fluid is you'll get a warning. Now, should you shut your truck off after it gets to a certain level and it's too low, and you go to turn your vehicle back on to go somewhere, well, you're now going to be entered into a limp mode, which will only let you go a certain mile an hour, not fast enough to really do anything. So you're going to be in limp mode until you can get diesel exhaust fluid put in. So by eliminating that risk with deleting, you can just get rid of all the need for diesel exhaust fluid. You can get rid of that ugly tank. I don't know why they put it where they did. They could have tucked it up by the fuel system or by the fuel tank and hid it way better than they did. But that ugly tank on the side of the Duramax it's horrible. Pretty sure the tanks got worse for 2017. I think Hagen's down way too far. So the amp research steps, they make them for the 2500 and they make them for the 1500. Now normally they would be the same model, but being that the 2500 has the urea tank on it, the amp steps had to be altered to fit around that tank because it goes right where the mounting brackets go. So in having to avoid the diesel exhaust tank, well, now the amp research steps fit terribly. They don't have an equal seam going all the way across. They kind of sit cockeyed, which if you're me drives me nuts, but I didn't know that at the time and nobody said anything at the time, so I ordered them that way. Now the trick is, and to get that perfect, we'll just let this plane fly over again. It's really bad trying to do a vlog right next to an airport. The trick to get the steps to work is remove your tank, order the steps for the 1500, and then you'll get a perfect fit of the amp steps the way they were designed and the way they should fit. The next thing we should touch on is the exhaust. Obviously, everybody wants their truck to sound badass. They want it to sound mean. They want to growl. Whatever your tastes are, you're extremely limited if you are running the emission system on there. Obviously, then you can only go cat back, or you can actually only go from the DPF back, the diesel particulate filter, which is a giant missile. And in doing so, you're really not going to get any kind of sound difference out of it. I mean, maybe something minute, and you may notice it, and it may be what you're after, but it's not going to sound like all these trucks you guys are hearing that sound sexy. So by removing the factory exhaust, you now have obviously unlimited options. You can do, you can run a straight pipe 5-inch all the way back, straight pipe 4-inch all the way back. So obviously, if you saw my previous video about my fuel economy, that's probably the biggest one. And for those of you even with stock trucks that want to do this, aside from the power gains you're going to get, the fuel economy gains are insane. Now, I know there's a lot of people saying don't go off what the computer in the truck tells you. Well, by tuning, you kind of recalibrate everything. Obviously, it's not 100%, but I think it gives you a real good idea of what you're running. But by deleting everything, running more efficient tunes, and using your motor more efficiently, the gains in not only horsepower, not only torque, but miles per gallon is insane. And if nothing more, that's the reason you want to delete your vehicle. That's a huge one, and that's probably why most people do it. So unless this is the route you want to go, and you want to run electric and have one of these sweet coal-fired power stations in your garage, because yes, hippies, the electricity coming from your garage into your car is most likely from a coal power plant. Coal keeps the lights on. So unless you want to go that route, a diesel motor is really your most efficient. It's way more efficient than gas. So to be able to tune them and get them dialed in to where they're even more efficient than they are from the factory, that's the way to go. So I know I'm getting a little off topic and a little scatterbrained, but I'm trying to think of all the questions I've been asked over the years, and I'm trying to answer everything in one video. I'm obviously not going to touch on everything, so remember, there's always the comment section. You can always message me. So there's a lot of resources out there. Forums are going to be huge. That's a good place to get a lot of info. So check those out. Now another one, and this one's probably one of the bigger ones, is people worry about the damage that's going to happen to their motor. Now, from what I've seen, from what I've read, and from the experts I've talked to, you're going to have more damage from the DPF system that's on there now than you will ever have by removing all of it and boosting up the horsepower. The system that's on there now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have run into the problems of your DPF getting clogged. You're running into filter issues, and those issues aren't cheap. They're not cheap to fix, and depending on where you're at in your warranty, sometimes they're not even covered. So I think the government warrants a mandatory emissions warranty length. So obviously most dealers are going to kind of hit that minimum. Whatever they got to hit, that's where you're going to be at. So by removing all that, you eliminate all the hassles of having to fix that stuff, because like I said, that stuff's not cheap to fix. Now, from the experts I talked to, not only are you removing that headache of having to fix any of that stuff, but the longevity of your motor is going to go up tenfold by the fact that you're not reburning all the soot that's already burned once and putting all that extra strain and all that extra stress and all that extra crap back into the motor. So by eliminating that, you're going to get the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles out of a diesel truck that you should be getting. Whereas I imagine you leave all that stuff on, and I don't see these new diesels lasting as long as they should. All right, we got the truck back. Let's go pay for this thing and get out of here. My biggest pet peeve is having the seat adjustments messed with when you take it to get anything done to it. But I kind of make an exception in this thing because I do not want the guy driving it to sit too far back, because usually most people are shorter. So I'd rather than be able to sit up and see and not wreck the truck into anything. And thankfully Chevy has the pre-programmed seat adjustments in here, so we can put the seat back. So real quick story as we drive out of here. In my old Silverado, they had this this tech at the old dealership, not this one. One of the main reasons I don't go to that old dealership anymore. But he jumps in my truck, and he was a shorter Asian guy. So he jumps in the truck, and he's about to take it into one of the bays for an oil change. And they had these those big 55-gallon drums at the end of each oil bay, and that was kind of their trash can. And this guy drives right into the fucking drum, right in front of me. And then acts like nothing happened, backs up, pulls it into the bay, and starts doing the oil change. So I go over, get the service manager, and I'm like, hey guy, your guy just ran my truck into one of these barrels. And he's like, oh man, like he would have told me if he did. You know, that's strange. You know, he wasn't trying to say he didn't, but he was trying to say, well, he should have alerted me right away if he did. I said, well, look, it just happened right in front of me. And luckily it did, because if I didn't see it, maybe they wouldn't have claimed it. And I was like, well, we got to go over there. So we go over there, and there were some scuffs on the chrome bumper. So they said, well, we'll run it over to the detail shop real quick. So they did, and they were able to get all the scratches out and make it look just as good as new. But had I not been watching it, and I always try and keep an eye on my vehicle almost, you know, as long as I can while it's getting worked on. This place I trust heavily. That's why I walked around today and was able to shoot this vlog for you guys. But always keep an eye on your stuff, because it's almost impossible to prove something happened if you didn't see it or if you don't have video. And the second you see it, call them out on it right away. But that's gonna end this vlog, guys. I know it was a long one, and hopefully you guys were able to make it all the way to the end. I tried to cover as much as I could in this vlog. Obviously, I probably didn't get to everything. So you guys have the comment section if you would like to leave a comment asking something. I'll try to get to it, and if it's something I don't know or something I don't get to, somebody else in the truck community will answer it as well. There's a wealth of knowledge out there, and we're all more than happy to share it with you guys. And with that, we are out.